for content. Advisory services offered through Blackridge Asset Management, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Blackridge Asset Management is a separate and independent entity from Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC. And now, Today with Denny, here's Denny Artachi.
Good morning. Great to be back with my partner in crime, Mr. Evan Nine. How you doing, brother?
Yes, the Macho Man says.
Man, I missed that guy, Macho Man.
I just had to do that to start the show off.
He was
for
just so steroided out, man. His veins would pop out around his neck.
Yeah.
He could. How are you doing today, Macho? I'm doing great.
Step into a Slim Jim.
Exactly. It's either too many steroids or not enough fiber in his diet. What do you think?
I don't know. That or it's constipated.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Right. Not enough fiber in his diet. He's trying to push everything up. Well, before we get too silly, we have a caller.
Yeah, right off the bat.
You're on Today with Denny. Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Not yet, but give me some time.
Oh, I got video. Don't worry.
Oh, it's Susan. That's who it is?
No. It's somebody pretending to be Susan. It's like evil twin.
It's Susan's alter ego.
Right? Evil twin is calling to wish you a happy belated birthday.
Why, thank you. I appreciate that. And if you see
Yes, I
Susan...
sent you some video of Santana on stage, and he was getting a birthday cake, and it was great. I don't know if you received that.
And where was this at? Was it at downtown?
I don't know where it was, but he was live on stage, and it was his birthday on July the 20th, and they were having a big birthday party for him, and he just did a Santana tribute. So I sent you a video of Santana on stage getting a birthday cake and a big old kiss from his wife.
Goodness, I'm going to have to see this.
Yeah.
I got to watch what I get filmed on.
Happy belated birthday.
Well, thank
and
you.
I have a lot of secrets about you, so you have to be nice to me. Okay, bye.
Thanks.
If that wasn't blackmail, I don't know what was.
Exactly right. Dude,
Wow.
I'm a marked man. I didn't even know that.
Alan, your buddy Glenn is there now.
Oh, Glenn? Hey, Glenn, you on the line with us, buddy?
Hey, Denny, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Listen, folks, this is my great friend and partner, part of the Financial Guys Network from Buffalo, New York, which is such an interesting place. I got to tell you, I think Buffalo is a good gauge of what's going on in this country and world because you have people from both sides of the fence there, Glenn, right? I mean, but
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like most of the country, you know, the inner city of Buffalo is mainly Democrat, liberal, and the suburbs are Republican, conservative.
Wow. And it's like an ongoing battle up there, like everywhere else, isn't it?
Well, you know, there's definitely two different worlds in this country right now. There's two different states. You know, you got Florida, Texas, Georgia, you know, the states that are, really recognize liberty and freedom and, you know, are doing the right thing, really. I mean, they learned from their mistakes. They kept their economy open and their numbers are better. You know, you got places like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and our friends in Canada to the north that are all talking about, you know, shutting things back down in some cases and, you know, not going back to school or having, you know, mask mandates. And it's definitely, you know, there's two different approaches. You've got the heavy-handed approach of Governor Cuomo, and you've got the, you know, free market approach of Governor DeSantis. I think you've seen the difference across the country with both economic damage done because of COVID, as well as, liberties restricted because of COVID. So, you know, and then, of course, the numbers weren't better. That's the interesting part is that in Florida, the numbers are actually better with the higher senior population than most of the country, including New York. So, yet they still want to do the same thing. That's the lunacy of it.
It's so hard to believe that anyone's taking Cuomo serious anymore, especially with his track record with the nursing homes, with all the women that came out. I mean, I don't see him in the news much, but I guess he still has he wants to keep a tight grip on everything, I guess, huh?
Well, he just went ahead and declared gun violence an epidemic or whatever, a state emergency.
Okay.
And so now, you know, doing that, grants him the authority to basically write his own laws and executive orders however he sees fit. And, you know, this is typical, you know, left-wing politics and how they do things. So they create an environment and they put in place policies that create the problem. In this case, they defunded the police in places like Buffalo and Rochester, New York City.
Ridiculous.
Right?
Ridiculous.
They passed something a couple years ago called bail reform, which basically restricts the judges from requiring bail for a huge number of criminals, including child pornography, which is insanity. And so you can assault somebody in New York State, and you'll be let out that evening or the next morning with no bail. And so you create these policies that create this massive amount of gun violence. In places like New York City, gun violence is up 200%. Rochester, it's up, 50, 70%. Buffalo is up 30, 40, 50%. Shootings and murders and, all kinds of gun violence. And so they put policies in place that create the problem, and then they come forth with spending solutions that don't fix the problem. And so Congressman Brian Higgins, our Democrat congressman in Western New York, just brought $5 million from the stimulus package to Buffalo to help fight gun violence. Now, logically, you'd say, okay, great. Let's use that $5 million to hire more police officers.
But where's the $5 million going? That's my question.
Well, it's going to special interest groups, right?
Nice.
It's going to these peace groups that, are community reach out programs to try to get ahead of violence and mitigate violence. These are all well-meaning people, don't get me wrong, but they have no infrastructure and no authority to arrest criminals and take them off the street. So we know what the solution is. It's simple. Hire more police officers and enforce the laws and keep the criminals in jail, and you'll have less violence. But instead, they're going to spend $5 million of taxpayer money on special interest groups that are going to, I'm sure have nice salaries and nice perks, but sadly, won't really do much to reduce gun violence. And so that's when they'll go forth and push their further gun control agenda.
Well,
that's how a place like New York works. California's the same.
Speaking of spending, too, President Biden is trying to push, and I think he will, a fourth stimulus package. Glenn, last time I checked, our economy's humming along, isn't it? I mean, we've had the jobless claims are at a new low, okay? We had 360,000 jobless claims. Inflation is rampant, and they're talking about doing a fourth stimulus. Where the heck is all this money going? Have you figured that one out yet?
Well, that's the thing. See, a lot of this money is not earmarked for anything. And so it becomes, congressman slush funds, right? Like
Yeah.
Brian Higgins. Right. So he's going to be the hero now and sprinkle $5 million on these community groups in Buffalo. And that's what they want to do. And both sides of the aisle, right? The Republicans go along with it because they get their fair share of pork and freebies as well, right? So Republicans will be allocated a pool of money, and the Democrats will be allocated a pool of money, and they'll be able to go back to their communities and spend it, in foolish ways. That doesn't help the American people at all, and you're seeing the results of that with inflation. To your point, inflation suddenly is looking a lot more permanent than everybody was saying.
That's
and I think the real problem that we have right now is we have a lack of workers. The real issue that's constraining this economy is not a lack of money. It's not a lack of demand. It's a lack of workers, the lack of supply. And unfortunately, the conventional, wisdom of Democrats and many in politics in general is more that Keynesian economics, government spending to stimulate demand. But we have demand. We don't have to stimulate more demand. We have very high demand, whether it's housing, whether it's lumber, commodities, right? I mean, demand is high. I mean, people have been pent up for a year because of COVID. So demand is not your issue. The issue is supply.
Right.
And
well,
supply
and
side
pricing.
economics. Yeah.
And pricing. I mean, you look, the top spikes are food and energy. And behind that is actually higher. Appliances. You mentioned lumber and things. It's costing a heck of a lot more to build a house now. And you're right. People said, well, maybe this is just a temporary spike in inflation. No, this looks like it's permanent, folks, so much that they're talking about raising the Social Security COLA to 6.1% next year. That's the highest they've even talked about since 1983. Folks, when they start proposing a 5 to 6% COLA in Social Security, there's some issues going on there. Glenn, if you can
That's
stay
huge.
with us, we're going to take a 1-minute break and come back with my buddy Glenn Wiggle on Today with Denny. All right, we are back on Today with Denny. Glenn, are you still there?
I sure am.
All right. Listen, there's a couple of things I want to run by you, man, that I just really wanted your take. And folks, I'm so blessed to have partners like Glenn and be part of Peak Brokerage Services and the Financial Guys Network, because we are such a positive, self-motivated organization with an unbelievable culture. And we believe in common sense. So, Glenn, I've got to ask you, this whole voter fraud thing is just so... I'm trying to find out what the Democrats are so upset about. I think the Republicans say, hey, you just have to show ID in order for you to vote. Is that basically it? Is that the nutshell that they're all disagreeing upon with this voter fraud thing?
Well, they want no ID. So they had one of the Texas policy. What's that?
That's what I'm saying. They don't want no ID. That's two negatives. Wait. They don't want any IDs. Is that what they're saying?
Well, so they had one of the Democrats that fled Texas. They interviewed yesterday, and they asked him point blank, are you again? Texas already has a voter ID law. They want to add a voter ID law for mail-in ballots as well, because that's a big way for them to harvest ballots and cheat. I think like they did in the 2020 election. So, the Fox reporter asked him point blank, would you undo or you want to get rid of the ID? He said, absolutely, I do. It's just preposterous. What they want is they want no ID. They want anyone to be able to vote. We have all kinds of cases of voter fraud in the country. This is how they win. Unfortunately, Democrats and their policies, in some cases they're well-meaning, but in other cases, they know that their policies are not what the majority of the American people want, right? The majority of the American people did not want Obamacare. They rammed it through as a procedural, type of maneuver, right? The majority of people don't want higher taxes, and yet they'll try to ram something like that through too. So the Democrats typically govern against the will of the people. So in order to do that, they have to be able to, rally enough votes and collect enough ballots.
But Glenn,
send them on in.
It makes no common sense whatsoever. President Biden compared this to the Civil War, and all they're saying, from what I can tell, all right, is you must show ID in order to vote. I show ID when I vote. I always show my ID. Evan, do you show your ID when you vote? Okay. If you want to rent a car, folks, if you want to do anything, you have to show ID. So what planet are you from that you think you don't have to show ID to vote, which is one of the most important rights you have in this country? And so the other thing about Texas, Glenn, when all of those got on the airplane, that governor says when they come back, he wants to arrest them all. Did you hear that?
Yeah, and I think he probably should. It's frustrating because it's only delaying the inevitable. The people of Texas elected a Republican legislature, and the Republican legislature is passing laws to better fortify the elections and make them legitimate. What they're asking for in Texas is they already have a voter ID at the polls. They're asking for a voter ID, a copy of your ID to be sent in with the mail-in ballots. The mail-in ballots were the problem. The mail-in ballots were where the fraud occurred, in my opinion. The mail-in ballots allowed them to go out and collect multiple ballots from multiple places, and or multiple people. In places like Georgia, you heard there's 52 people registered at one person's house, for example, right? So it opens the door to ballot harvesting, which is illegal in most states. There should be at least a little bit of effort required to go and vote. I'm sorry, there's polls everywhere, but you shouldn't be able to sit on the couch and do it from your iPhone. The least motivated among us should not be picking our leaders. No offense to anybody. The reality of it is to get off your butt and actually go to a polling place and cast your vote. And if you can't do that because of medical reasons or whatever, then fine. Mail-in ballot is absolutely legitimate, or absentee ballot.
Well, they're also
have to
saying
provide ID with that.
The also saying, Glenn, is they don't want them to just send out blanket mail-in ballots. You have to request it, because that was the other thing that they were saying that they should not have done. But this is where I shut it off. I can't watch the news. Both sides call each other liars, and they lose the common sense thing about it. Because, folks, it is absolute common sense that if you want to vote, you should show your ID. You have to show your ID for stupid things. Voting is very important. Now, on another subject, because I know I had Mike Lomas on here a couple weeks ago. So now they're ringing the COVID Delta variant again, right? So here we go again. We had 8-9 weeks of very few cases relative. So what do you think's going on with this new Delta variant that they're promoting? Throughout TV and everything. Do you think it's real, Glenn, or do you think it's just a?
I'm sure it's real. I mean, I'm sure there's a variant out there. There's always variants to viruses.
Of course.
But I think the hype and the scaremongering is unwarranted, and they have to continue this through 2022, right? They have another election to steal. I mean, let's be honest here. If when Obama got into office in 2008, and they jammed through Dodd-Frank and they jammed through Obamacare, in the 2010 midterm elections, the Republicans turned over the House and won more seats than any time since like the 1930s. I mean, it was an absolute shellacking. The Democrats know it will be a Republican shellacking come 2022.
I think
as well, right?
Yeah,
the Republicans will likely turn over the House and the Senate if it's a fair and open election, which is why they have to fight so hard to keep, the openness of mail-in ballots. So in my opinion, they're going to have variant after variant after variant, and they're going to use that as an excuse to have to do this massive mail-out ballots again, and they'll perpetuate the same, ballot stuffing and ballot, and ballot harvesting.
Well, here's the thing: they have to focus on the pandemic because it's not like they have brilliant economic strategies that they're going to talk about. I mean, they're going to raise taxes, okay? And folks, I unlike Glenn, who's I'm not as bold as Glenn is, because I don't want to have the arguments with people. But I don't like what's going on, because if you take away the pandemic, there's no economic things that they're talking about that I agree with. They're going to raise taxes. They keep printing money like drunken sailors on shore leave. It looks like the border situation is so out of control. And funny things are happening in the Middle East and other parts of the world. So in other words, the stabilization that we were enjoying for a few years, within, what's it been now, 6 months, 7 months? It's totally turned upside down in many ways. And
when the United States pulls out of certain areas and creates a vacuum, other bad actors will move in to take advantage of it. And you've seen that in Iraq and Syria with Russia and China, right? They're moving in, and they're, same thing with Afghanistan. The Chinese are moving. We're pulling out. Chinese are moving right in, writing blank checks for millions of dollars, saying we're going to support you, but here's the strings that are attached.
Yeah.
The United States usually goes in and says, we're going to support you, we're going to help you, no strings attached, and then somebody else, gets the benefit of our hard work and oftentimes our sacrifice of not only treasure, but sadly the blood of our soldiers.
That's the worst part. That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
And all I can do, Glenn, is pray. I mean, I love our conversations. Are you going to be back, in about a month? You'll be back in
2
Florida?
weeks. No, I'm back in 2 weeks.
That's even better. So you're done with the hunting and fishing and everything? Because I know you love to get off the grid as much as you can.
Well, I'm on my way to Michigan now. I'm heading off the grid. So I'm up. I'm in Ohio right now, and by this evening, I'll be on the Manistee River up in northern Michigan, west of Grayling, making a camp for
what a
couple days of trout fishing.
All right. Well, listen, I will talk to you in a couple of weeks. Always a pleasure. Glenn Wiggle, ladies and gentlemen, part of the Financial Guys
Denny.
and Peak Brokerage Services. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right, take care.
See you. Do we have Charlie? You on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, how are you, bud?
Oh, I woke up, so that's good.
You guys
good. Been bouncing around a lot. A friend of mine just went fishing a couple months ago, upstate New York.
Really?
And he actually saw his salmon get stolen. He had it tied. He caught 2 large salmon, beautiful. Sent me pictures of them. One had a sucker, a lamprey on it.
Who stole it, a person or an animal?
The fish. So he's on the way out. He saw these people holding up this fish. That looks familiar. Then he went back to his spot. Oh, my God, they stole my fish. Well, I hope they choke on it. But anyway, as a combat veteran, you were talking about making stupid decisions. I was in Nam with when Johnson stopped the bombing, and we immediately felt it. That was right, the Tet Offensive, et cetera, the first one. So, if you stop punching the other guy in the face, all of a sudden you get punched back, right?
So Charlie, you don't think we should have pulled out in Afghanistan the way we did?
After 21 years, that's kind of insane. I'm a believer in mercenaries. There's a lot of people, that I know, that love combat. I didn't want to die, When the napalm got dropped right in front of me, holy Lord, thank God I was in a B-52 crater. I felt like I was going to be baked Charlito.
Well, I'm concerned that that the world is going to get a little more scarier, and there's going to be more people trying to punch us and other people.
No, I hear you. We could have we have an all-volunteer army.
Yeah.
That's why people volunteer. I volunteered. My father
did too.
said, don't volunteer for anything.
Yeah, I was an
Airborne,
army guy, yes.
etc. UDT, I should have gone to the fields, but that's another story. Now, this Bitcoin, I'm talking about the market, peak capital management. I'm a little bit ashamed of my Morgan Stanley recognizing cryptocurrency. I think, and I mentioned this once before, I think that's the Chinese somehow involved, that they can destroy the U.S. dollar and certainly are.
Well, Charlie, we should meet, and I've got great partners. One of the top money managers that I use is Paul Meeks. He's on CNBC every week, and even he's really concerned about inflation. It's not just
me too.
the
Me
cost,
too.
but
I turned everything over to my guy because it's an emotionally driven market.
Right.
I had a portfolio that I was in charge of. He was in charge of everything else. I'm doing 600% growth. He's doing 35.
Is that right?
I'm happy with the 35. I'm very aggressive. I have an aggressive personality, I guess.
Well, listen.
I bought Microsoft at 25, dude. I have almost 500 shares.
Well, listen.
Whoa.
Paul was arguably the best, most successful growth and tech guy in the world.
My father was, closed-end funds?
Yes.
My father was an expert, making $15,000 a month in closed-end funds.
Yeah, and back then, that was a lot of money.
Well, back then, my father retired and died a multimillionaire.
Well, listen, if you got a pen, I'm going to give you my number, okay? Are you ready?
Hold on. By the way, I've known my people more than 30 years. So
that's okay. My number is 561-305-8226. Doesn't cost anything to talk. We could meet for coffee. I think you're a great, interesting. As a matter of fact, Evan and I have talked about having you on the show. As long as you promise to leave your weapons at home. We're not in fear for our life. I
had silent boarding. So I told this lady that was standing up. She stood up.
Boarding.
I said, ma'am. I said, I hope we don't hit an air pocket. I met somebody with a broken neck. She said, well, my doctor said to stand up for my hip.
So,
said,
Charlie,
well, make sure you don't break your neck.
Listen, I'm going to throw this out there. How about 2 weeks from now, you come into the show, to the station? Will you think about it?
I'll think about it.
All right, you think about it. Get back.
I don't like people, guys. I really don't.
I know.
I'm outside in my garage right now.
But you like me and Evan, don't you?
Inside.
You like me and Evan?
I do. I've actually suggested that I like the 1590 guys, All right. So
think about it. Call me and think about coming in 2 weeks.
I'm calling you from my cell phone. I know you have caller ID.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Charlie.
You can reach out to me because I'll probably forget.
Well, if you call me, I'll have your number, okay?
All right. I'm close to where you are.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Always a pleasure. We're going to take a break and come back. Thanks a lot for calling in, Charlie. You always make me laugh and smile. That's for sure. And we'll be right back on Today with Denny. All right, we are back on Today with Denny. And yes, my partner astutely notices that I have the hair gel on.
It's a pasty day today.
When my headphones are slid back like this,
yeah,
that's right. But when I don't have the plaster, the hair gel,
yeah,
then I can wear it up top.
Yes.
So that's all it is. Speaking of I had a great show last Monday at the Funky Biscuit. The Funky Biscuit is a nationally touring club in Boca Raton. They have acts, really worldwide acts that go there. Top blues artist Ambrosia was there a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, how much I feel! I love that song.
Yeah, they have a lot of great. So we went there, and I was going to have my normal Santana tribute, but I got with a couple of guys from the house band and then some other friends, and the show was just unbelievable. They videotaped it. It was a great birthday. I'm going to be at Mulligan's this Sunday. I know you're probably doing, a wedding or two or three or four.
No,
or
I'll be in SeaWorld Sunday.
Is that right?
I'm taking a family day on Sunday. It's me, the wife, and the youngest kid and his girlfriend, and we're going to SeaWorld.
Good for you, man.
Yes.
You're actually taking
Recharge.
a Sunday off.
Yes, I'm taking a Sunday off. No church. We're going to watch church online.
Okay.
As we're driving up.
Yeah.
Leaving at 6 a.m. Yeah.
SeaWorld. So that'll take you about an hour and a half, right?
Hour and a half from the home front.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a while since SeaWorld was pretty cool. And, I don't know. It's so funny. I was watching the All-Star game the other night, and I'm like, look at this. This is like surreal. Nobody's wearing a mask in that stadium.
My boy Pete Alonso won the home run derby.
Yeah.
That's right. 2 in a row.
I feel so bad for the city of Atlanta that they missed out on all the revenue.
Yeah.
And they took it to Denver, which that's a great stadium in Denver.
It's gorgeous.
It's really, wow. Yeah. How could you not like it? But poor Atlanta. I mean, they must have missed out on 100, 200 million in revenues.
Easily.
Right?
It's like when the Super Bowl comes to town.
Yeah. And so, but it was so surreal. Nobody was wearing mask protection.
Felt normal.
It felt normal. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, is this bad? You almost feel guilty, right?
Yeah.
I have not gone to a major event since all of this. Okay. And I want to go to a couple of Dolphin games.
Okay.
And who knows where we'll be in September with this stuff.
I'm going to my first concert.
You are?
Yes. In hold on.
That's so awesome.
I'll tell you exactly when it is. And you would appreciate this because it's a major popular worship band. November 3rd down in Fort Lauderdale. BB&T Center.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a good place for a show.
Yeah.
You can fit a lot of people.
But you know who's coming to West Palm? I bet you'll want to go and see
who?
Kiss.
Oh,
yes.
That's great.
Yes.
My God, how old are those guys?
Oh, Gene and Paul are the only two living members. The only two. Yes. The only
Ace
two
Frehley's still alive.
Yeah, but they're the only two original members touring. Yeah.
I think the key to those guys for their longevity is they never did drugs. Yeah. They really.
Yeah, right.
No, that's what they say. Yeah. I mean, seriously, you think they did? Well, Gene says he didn't.
Yeah.
You don't believe it, huh?
No, it's a bunch of garbage.
All right, folks, there you go. So Kiss did actually do drugs. They lied to us. They were political. They did drugs. So anyway, the show's coming up Sunday at Mulligan's Beach House. It's nice. We did the 4th of July show, and that was great on the Riverwalk.
Did you have a good crowd for that?
It was. The rain was coming, and we didn't know. We were not going to do it. Then we waited. We wound up doing a nice, hour and a half set. People loved it.
Nice.
It was very successful. Stewart has so many great places for music, and we're surrounded by water, and it's just, so awesome. And folks, I want to get back to the economy and investment because obviously, I'm an independent financial planner, and inflation is going to hurt us long term. I don't think this is a short. I hope I'm wrong. I love being wrong. But when I see the prices of everything going up continually for, a couple of cycles and months in a row, and they're talking about another stimulus check out there, I would seriously look at your investments now more than ever. I mean, right now it's still difficult because the market is still up. We're at record highs. So people feel that they don't need to look at anything or make any changes. But this is the time when you should brace yourself for changes. Now, obviously, no one can predict when the market's going to go down or how long it's going to go down or where the next bubble is going to be. But common sense-wise, if you think that these highs are going to continue and there are going to be no blips on the radar, then maybe you should do your own investing and not seek help. But if you are concerned about it, give me a call, 561-305-8226, and we can look at what you're doing, balance the portfolio. I've got great money managers as partners. One of them is Paul Meeks, who's been on this show. He's on CNBC every week. And let me tell you, he's concerned about this inflation part. He's concerned about how the economy is doing not just for the next 6 to 12 months, but the next 5 years, and how this could affect expectations. Now, again, Wall Street's doing great. So far, all the companies and businesses have exceeded expectations. But think about this, folks. They're comparing it to last year. Is last year reality on earnings and growth? And I would say no, because we were knee deep in this pandemic. So for you to show, for anyone to show a great increase over last year, we have to look at what is it compared to the year before, and what is it looking like going forward. So that being said, of course, jobless claims are down. The economy's humming along. Inflation is a concern. You should look at your portfolio. You know, not one size fits all. There's many different ways to achieve your goals. You know, equities is one thing. Bonds are not that sexy. There are some annuities, for lack of the, people hate that word, annuities. And it's so funny because I'm a full financial planner. I have 5 licenses. I never sit down in a meeting and have any expectations. I ask clients what they're looking to do. And I tell you, Evan, most of them, they start off saying, well, before we get going any further, I don't want to hear about annuities or insurance products. And I go, fine, no problem. Let's just talk. And you know what? At the end of the conversation, they go, hey, maybe we should sprinkle some of this into these insurance products, because I am concerned about the market changing. Like, for example, I met a lady, really nice lady, about a week ago, and her main concern was to leave all of her assets to her kids. She doesn't really care about, I mean, she cares about growth, but she wants an efficient way of leaving it to her kids. And we found an insurance product that guarantees a step up every year for the benefit of her kids. She can figure out who the beneficiaries are. She can defer the taxes, and her money has no downside risk to it. And she's paying like maybe 0.5% in fees. So, folks, if that's your goal, I'm not saying you're she, but we're also managing her money. I have my money managers, but for a balance of it, we put in some of the insurance products. The reason why there's a need for insurance products is many times our health changes. Many times people die prematurely. Many times people want to leave this to other people and save in the fees that they're paying, because let's face it, when you're buying equities, mutual funds and things, you have to pay commissions, and there are sales costs to everything. Even a lot of top mutual funds can have up to 2% in annual fees. And people don't really understand and look at that. Where a managed portfolio that you're maybe paying 1 to 1.25%, that's all you're paying, and you're having it actively managed, no matter how many trades are there, and you have a custom tailored portfolio. There are many people out there that take low-cost ETF or low-cost mutual funds and then put what's called a wrap fee on top of it of, say, 1% or higher. That's not really money managing, folks. So my point is, I take a holistic approach. I've got great partners. We look at fees, we look at downside, we look at succession plans, we look at what happens if your life changes, your health changes. You have to look at all those factors. And remember, the other thing that people don't really address is taxation. It's not what you make, but how much do you get to keep? And if you don't address that, when you leave it to the next generation, they're going to have to deal with the taxation. So that's it in my speech of that. But give me a call. I have an office in Jupiter. I do travel. I'm meeting a client today, later on in Fort Pierce. So I have clients in many different places. My number is 561-305-8226. It doesn't cost you anything to chat. And I love what I do. I love helping people. And a lot of times what you don't know could really cost you a lot in the end. And that's my whole point. So I think we're ready for another break, and we're going to come back on today with Denny. And I'm so grateful that it's not 9,000 degrees out today.
No.
You notice the weather's been
I like
really
the
cool?
suit, by the way.
Thank you.
Jealous.
Yeah, but you look more fly the way you are.
Yeah, well, what can I say? This
All
is
that
just
freestyle stuff that you do.
my normal attire, my everyday wear. What can I say?
We'll be back on Today with Denny, folks. All right, we are back on Today with Denny. It's a funny thing, Evan. I ask a lot of people if they'd like to be on the show, and they're so scared. I mean, it's just a microphone, right?
That's all it is.
I have a buddy in town. We went to high school together. Now, this is what's hilarious. He's been living in Los Angeles for many, many years. He's part of production company. He does reality TV shows, and he's scared to come on the show today. I said, Mike, let's talk about the bands we were in, the stuff on MTV. He has like 3 reality TV shows that he produces on that show, but he's scared to come on the radio, and I don't understand
Some
it.
people have a phobia. They just don't like it. Me, I can get in front of 10,000, 20, 30, 40,000 people and ring announce.
Yes.
A wrestling show. For
Yes.
me, it's second nature.
Just like when I used to play to those large crowds in music.
Exactly.
Right.
Same thing.
And if you're listening, folks, I do like to interview all walks of life to make the show interesting. So I've been asking people in the medical field to call in or be a guest to let me know first-handedly what they've seen, from the beginning of the pandemic to where it is now, because it was interesting when I would talk to medical professionals during the whole pandemic. You'd be surprised how their take was different than what the media was portraying. And I mean in both sides, whether how serious it was or the fact that people are they're stupid not to take it seriously because, folks, COVID is a serious business. My whole point, though, is, are the statistics misleading? They've changed the goalposts so many times. And how do so many people get it and have no issues? So many people get it, have issues. The jury is still out on the vaccines, whether they're safe or not. And again, it's another statistical thing. So if you're a health professional, I'd love for you to call in or be a guest on the show. If you have a business that you're promoting or a special event, please call into the show or call me personally at 561-305-8226. I think what makes local radio relevant and important is having local people involved, whether it's a business, a profession that you have. And, hopefully Evan and I always want positive people on the show.
Oh, yeah.
If you're too political or negative, man, what's that saying? If you're a bummer, you're a bummer.
Yeah.
Life is tough. I know it's hard. And I look at what's going on in Cuba. It's so terrible what those people are doing. And I don't even know, is the government cracking down on them for protesting like they're doing?
I heard they turned off the internet in Cuba.
They probably
turn off the internet.
I don't know.
Ridiculous.
But I look at the fact that, we're flying out people from Afghanistan who have helped us. We let them come through the border, but we're not. I don't know why we don't have a more active role in Cuba. That's an obvious oppressive communist regime that's there. People are starving from of course, I'm assuming what I see is true.
Yeah.
But I've talked to people from Cuba that tell me that food is the biggest problem there, and health supplies, and the way of life there is so bad that they're finally protesting. And think about it, for them to get in boats and travel 200 miles with the chance of drowning or dying at sea,
it's bad.
That's a pretty bad situation you're trying to get away from.
I went to Cuba on a cruise. That was one of the ports that the cruise ship stopped in. Yeah. My wife and I refused to get off the boat. We didn't want to go.
No kidding.
Yeah, we just wanted to play it safe and not get off the boat and stay on the ship.
When was this?
About, I'd say 2-3 years ago. But if you wanted to get off the boat and go on and tour around, you had to pay a fee, a tariff fee or whatever it's called, to get off the boat to Cuba, to go onto their island. And it was like ridiculous. It was like $175, $200.
Yeah, I wonder
just
where
to get
that
off
money
the boat.
went, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I wish, I mean, it's not like we're going to get into war because what's Cuba going to do to us? So I'm trying to understand why we're not doing more for them. But they're so close to our shores. But I don't know. I guess I can't understand a lot of things. I saw, did you hear? There was another Miami Beach building that was evacuated over concrete concerns. Now, how and why is this coming about just baffles me. Like that building that went down and those poor people that perished in it. We still don't know why that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, how does a concrete building that looks
I already
normal,
told you my thoughts on that.
you thought it was a naval?
I thought the naval ship that was miles offshore that did that detonation of that bomb, that they had vibrations of an earthquake, a 3-point something earthquake all up and down the coast, had something to do with that. And
has anyone looked into that?
It was brought up once, and that was it. That was the end of it. Nothing else was brought up.
Well, there you have it, folks. I can just pray for the families. But yes, there was another building that they evacuated. So now they're looking at that whole area. And man, I tell you what, I don't know if I'd want to live in one of those high rises right now, because I'm pretty happy with a 1-story house in Jupiter. I'm not dealing with any of that. But I do listen. The other thing, back to this COVID, because it's ramping up again.
Mm-hmm.
I really do hope that it doesn't get crazy again, because it's for some strange reason they're finding this variant in 111 countries, and the ones hit pretty bad. It looks like Tokyo has it, Indonesia has it, even Britain has a version of it rearing its ugly head. But so far in the U.S., statistically, we're still in downward trajectories. We don't have any out of control cases. But I got to tell you, if it starts ramping up again in the next 30 to 60 days, watch out. They're going to do lockdowns, maybe not in Florida, but around the states and country. I hope that that's not what happens. And I really hope that someday we can talk about COVID is behind us and it's no longer here at all. But you just don't know about that. Now, okay, we got 5 minutes until the for whom the toll bell rings.
Yeah.
Has anything else been happening since the last couple of weeks that I've seen you?
Let's see, the over under.
That's right.
Sleep's been pretty good. I had a weird dream last night. Don't want to even go into it.
What's her name?
No, it wasn't her. It was where I was.
Where were you?
We're not going to go there.
You're not going to say it on the air?
We're not going to go there. It was just weird. But no, the over under is pretty good, actually. It's been pretty darn good as of late. But then again, this is a non-baseball week also.
Okay.
So on non-baseball weeks, it's normal for me. During baseball weeks, it's like, the axe to the grind.
Yeah, exactly. You've got so many hours. I'm getting ready to gear up again and compete to try and go back to Memphis. That should, I think the first rounds are next month.
What are you competing in?
I'm going to be doing original blues music.
Oh, wow.
And,
very cool.
When I was there,
cool.
They couldn't have it a year ago because of COVID. But
Right.
2 years ago, I went to Memphis, competed with about 230 acts around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost deep in the semifinals to the band that took it all. So
Okay.
it makes me wonder. And my friend who saw the scorecard said, you don't know how close you were to beating them. And that's the first time I was in Memphis. Memphis is an unbelievable city because it's got such history and culture, but my brother, it's got so much poverty as well. They've got I think the St. Jude Hospital is originally from Memphis. There's a big hospital there. You've got Beale Street. You've got Sun Records. The one thing that I got to tell you, it was emotional. I actually had to step outside because I was choked up. I went to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes through the whole history. And folks, racism is not in my blood. I like or dislike equally. I don't care where you're from. But when you see the history and the civil rights, and I first saw it because outside is that hotel where Dr. King was shot.
Right.
And it looks exactly like it did in 1968, including to the room what he ate.
Mm-hmm.
And so you go in there, and that was just an experience. Memphis, Graceland was interesting. But when I went in there and saw the old carpet on the walls and the green appliances, and people said, well, it was the 70s. And I went, I don't care what year it was. There's no way I would have done this. But Graceland was interesting also. He has his own racquetball courts there. It was a nice I'm hoping to go back to Memphis. So on tap is the IBCs are going to heat up again. I am going to be playing locally, and I hope I can go back to Memphis. It's quite a city, and I hope I can compete and do well doing original music. I love music. On another note, I was communicating with Ron Bushy from Iron Butterfly, and it's possible that he's going to let me go on tour with the band again.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
He's just got to, yeah, I did. We're still friends on Facebook.
Cool.
And, you know, the only reason I stopped Iron Butterfly is at that time I had to make a decision that my job threatened to fire me if I went on tour for a week because we didn't go out that often. And so the band got mad at me, and that was the history. I stopped playing. Wow. But I've always stayed in touch. And who knows, folks? It's possible that I may do it, but I don't know if there's any interest. He did say that he was forwarding the info to the agents. I told him that we could probably do some great shows in Florida. There's a few places that we can do. So I hope it happens.
Good luck.
I can go back in time, which very few times you can do that in history.
Agreed.
And I hope that I can get the band going again and be the lead singer, lead guitar player. Their music was iconic. It wasn't just In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. They had a couple of really cool hits that I liked. So that's it on Today with Denny. I'm happy to be back with my partner in crime, and we'll see you next week. Next week, we're going to have a holistic healer who also teaches hot yoga.
Oh, wow.
And
can't wait for that one.
Yeah, she's going to be talking about all that she does. Very spiritual lady. And folks, make it a great day, and we'll see you next week on Today with Denny.